I'm rather a neophyte when it comes to vlogging, um, and it's often rather uncomfortable for me to sit here and talk to a computer screen like it's a person. If I were a news anchor, this would probably be easier. If I had a teleprompter, it would probably also be a lot easier. I know I'm supposed to stare at this green dot, and that will make it look like I'm talking to you, but I have written a blog that's down here, and I'm using this blog as kind of touch points so I remember what I want to say in this vlog. So be patient with me as I lose eye contact with you. I'm doing this vlog is about advice that I'd like to give to younger artists, younger professionals, younger musicians. It is basic advice. It is something, all of these you might look at and think, duh. But it's also advice that tends to not ring in our heads as we're wandering through our daily lives. And they are things we should think about before we make any decision that we make. And we should go through our daily lives walking and talking these points. And I think of them every day. And since I write more clearly than I speak, I did write a blog about it on Octarium's blog site, which you can find at the address below. And so if you're tired already of hearing me talking, go down to the address below and just read what I'm about to say. The first point, as I look down and lose eye contact with you, I would say a very important piece of advice is always make eye contact with people. But as I look away, the first point I would like to make is don't stop learning after you're done with your formal education. I have a bachelor's degree in music education, I have a master's degree in voice, I have a master's degree in musicology, I have a doctorate in voice. So I have a bunch of degrees, but most of what I use in my day-to-day life as an artist, I learned outside of school. That might be an exaggeration, but particularly what I do for Octarium in arts administration and development and fundraising, marketing and PR and all of those things, I didn't learn any of that because that's not a degree I pursued. So I have always tried to expand my horizons and expand my knowledge by learning as much as I can and growing as much as I can. They say that Michelangelo, when he was an old man, drew a sketch of an old man, and in the margin he wrote, let me see here what it is in Latin, he wrote ancora imparo, which loosely translated means I am still learning. And that, I have a paperweight that a friend of mine gave me years ago that says that I am still learning, Michelangelo. And I think about it every day. And it is something I try to do every day. I try to go to bed at night knowing one more thing than I did in the morning. And as I get older, it's easier because I keep forgetting stuff. But every day, learn something new. And then you have to be open to learning something new. The second thing is that you can always learn something from somebody else, even if they're morons. And I say it a little bit more politically correctly on the blog, but a lot of what I do and a lot of how I do it is based not on seeing somebody do it the way I do it, but seeing someone do it in a way that I didn't approve of. A lot of how I approach my choral work, a lot of how I approach my role as a conductor and as a boss and as a supervisor is based on past experiences that I've had with bosses and supervisors and choral conductors that did not please me as an artist or as a person or as a human being. So you can often learn from those negative experiences you might be having. Sometimes knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do. Don't piss people off on the way up the ladder. You know, you think the ladder's going this way, it's really kind of going this way. And you're going to run back into those people again, and you're going to think, oh, I wish I hadn't, as a silly 20-year-old, said what I said or done what I've done. Cultivate relationships now. You never know when those relationships are going to come back to you. Right now I'm working with a small upstart theater company here in Kansas City that's run by a guy I went to college with. And we weren't really close friends and we didn't really stay in contact after school. But we were in a show together. And now we're working together because we have that past relationship. We have that past history together. So we cultivated a relationship and now it is blooming 20 years later. So don't burn your bridges. Remember, every time you go out to perform, whether it be for a brown bag luncheon in a very busy train station or for a large audience of thousands of people, there is always someone out there who knows the difference, and there is always someone out here who is hearing that piece of music or seeing that piece of performance art for the first time. So it is never okay to phone it in and not give it your best. I've heard a story that somebody was doing Copeland out in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest, maybe like The Promise of Living or something. And it was an audience of farmers in overalls and, you know, just hay seeds, right? And so the sometimes you think it doesn't really matter. They don't care. And maybe some of them don't, but somebody is going to care. Somebody out there knows. And in that audience that day was Aaron Copland. So it might be an urban myth, I don't know, but it makes a good illustration of the story. You never know who's out there, and you never know who's listening. Also, you never know who you're teaching for the first time to love classical music or jazz or whatever kind of music or performing art you experience. Somebody out there is learning what it means for the first time, so always, always give your best. Always remember that you as a person, not when you're on stage performing, but when you're just wandering around in your life, you are a living, breathing, walking, talking, speaking advocate for the arts. You are an example of what people think of when they think of the arts. So watch what you say and watch what you do. Watch how you say it and how you do it, because what you say and what you do reflects on your art, even if you're at the grocery store. This is important in art or out of art. Always keep your promises. Do what you say you're going to do. Always. And if you don't think you're going to be able to do it for sure, say, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try and get it for you by this date. I don't want to make any guarantees. But if you promise somebody something, if you say you're going to get something done by a certain date, it's done before that date. Do what you say you're going to do. Be reliable. And the last one is a little bit more transcendent. You always think about, always evaluate what it means to be an artist. And that will evolve and change depending on what you're doing and what projects you're involved in. And sometimes being an artist means you're doing menial tasks, like writing a financial report for a grant, or balancing the checkbook, or having coffee with a really rich person hoping they'll give you money for a project you're doing. Those things might not seem like things that you want to do as an artist, but often they're required to be done so that you can have your transcendent artistic experience. And your transcendent artistic experience is worth the menial tasks you have to do to get there. So always evaluate what it means to be an artist, and it doesn't always mean that you're 24 hours a day going to be an artist. Sometimes you're going to have to be an administrator. Sometimes you're going to have to be an administrative assistant. Sometimes you're going to have to be a ticket taker. Sometimes you're going to have to be a custodian. There's all sorts of roles that go into creating wonderful performing art, and sometimes the artists are doing all those roles in addition to creating the art. So don't ever think there's a job that's beneath you, because all of those jobs lead up to the art eventually, and sometimes you have to do all of those jobs. So that's just a nutshell of advice I try to live by. So I hope you guys have a good week, and I will try and think of some more wisdom to impart to you next week. Thanks.